Hello, I'm Dr. Rebecca Docherty, an educational psychologist, and I'm going to talk about what emotion coaching is. Emotion coaching is an approach that we can use to help children regulate their difficult feelings in the moment. It's a little bit different to having a separate strategy where we learn about emotions, which is fine too. But emotion coaching is about what we do in the moment when we're seeing the children express emotions, which might lead to some difficult behaviors as well, or not. So what do we do at those points where we see the children expressing emotion? Emotion coaching is about helping the child learn to regulate those emotions. So going after the emotions rather than thinking straight away about the behaviors and what we do about the behaviors. We're helping the child regulate the emotions so that gradually over time they'll get used to that, and then on future occasions they might find it easier to regulate those emotions themselves. So we're developing the approaches gradually over time, because when we're learning new ways of regulating and when we're learning new habits, this stuff doesn't happen overnight. So this isn't a strategy that you're going to use one time, two times. This is something that's going to embed into lots of different interactions. And then gradually that process of going from dysregulated emotion to regulated emotion becomes more habitual for the child. Okay, I'm going to screen share so I can go through a few slides really quickly. Okay. So emotion coaching is about supporting the development of emotional regulation. We're interacting with children and young people at the point that the emotion is being expressed, so that they can start to form some connections in their brain that help them to get used to the habit of going from dysregulated to regulated again. We know that we've all got these emotions naturally, and we're not born with the ability to independently regulate ourselves. We learn this, or we get used to doing this through repeated interactions with adults who care about us. As they model and they show what it is to go from dysregulated to regulated, we embed that process. So how do we interact with children and young people at the points of expressed emotion? There's a few different ways that people as a general rule interact at this point. So you might see things in these approaches that you recognize. We've probably all done most of them at some point. One approach is what is sometimes termed the laissez-faire approach, which is where we do interact with the emotions, but maybe indulge them. We don't teach how to regulate those emotions. We just go straight into the, oh my goodness, you're right to feel those emotions, and because of that, we're maybe not setting expectations. We're maybe not teaching the child how to regulate those emotions. We're validating emotions, but we're not supporting the child to regulate those emotions. So we're maybe leaving them in that dysregulated state rather than helping the child to become regulated. The emotion disapproving approach is one where behavior and emotions are not engaged with. We're just telling the child, no, you mustn't do that. Okay, so we're seeing some behavior which is as a consequence of the emotions, but we're going straight into, no, you mustn't do that. We can't do that behavior. Okay, so it is setting an expectation, but we're not supporting the child to know, but I'm still going to have emotions on future occasions. How am I going to regulate those emotions so that I can meet the expectation? The emotion dismissing approach is sometimes what we see when the adult is really struggling with the emotions that they're seeing, and they just really want them to stop. So we may be fixing things, we may be trying to organize the world so the child doesn't need to experience these emotions. So, something gets broken, oh, it's okay, we can get a new one. We're going straight in with trying to fix this. But what we're doing there is we're teaching the child that when you have emotions, that's not something that we can tolerate. We need to rearrange the world so that you don't need to feel those emotions, rather than learning that, okay, we're going to have emotions and how do we regulate it when that happens. The approach that we're talking about now is emotion coaching, where we're trying to link together the emotions. So we're just saying, it's okay to feel frustrated, it's okay to feel angry, and we still can't hit people when we're feeling angry. And yes, we are frustrated that this is difficult work, and we're just going to try and get ourselves to carry on a little bit longer. So we're actually doing both. We're saying it's fine to have these emotions, and that's okay. So we're starting where the emotion is, and then saying, and these expectations are still there. If you want to have a look through some of the other videos, I've gone through this particular scenario with a child, my own child, in which I go through those 4 different approaches and interact with the same scenario. I've given some food to my child and he's dismissing it. It's a constructed scenario. It's acted because it's very difficult to go through the same scenario in real life 4 different ways. So we've acted out the scenario, but interestingly, I said to him, just respond as you would do if I acted like this. So although, yes, it is contrived to a certain extent, he's just responding as he sees fit. But you can see the different approaches there. You can see when I indulge the emotions, the laissez-faire. You can see when I disapprove and just go, no, you can't behave like that. You can see when I dismiss it and say, oh, it's okay, I'll get you something else to eat. And you can see when I coach the emotions and say, okay, you don't like this food, but we still can't throw food around. So have a look at those if you want, and you can see what those different approaches look like in real life. So when we're emotion coaching, what we're doing is we're trying to connect together the feeling part of our brain, our limbic system, with some sensible thinking in our prefrontal cortex. So we're linking together, yeah, this is really frustrating. And we're going to see if we can concentrate for a little bit longer. Okay, so can you see what's happening there? We're going from the emotion, reassuring that it's okay to feel those emotions. And then what is the sensible thinking? Because what we're trying to do is trying to train in going from dysregulated to regulated. Yeah, I can see you're really annoyed that happened. Okay, let's take a deep breath because it's important that we don't hit anybody. So you're starting with the emotion, empathizing with them, validating that, and then going on to the expectation or the logical way of thinking about the situation. Here's some examples of things that might be said, obviously, depending on the age of the child. A scenario, the first one there, where somebody's building, they built a tower and it's got knocked down, which is annoying. And the child is maybe starting to act out in a little bit of a dysregulated way. So we could say in that situation, oh my goodness, your tower got knocked down. That's really frustrating. These things happen sometimes. It is annoying and we have to try and control ourselves when we're annoyed. Okay, let's go for a walk and see if we can calm down. So we start where the child is, empathizing, acknowledging those emotions, because what we're not doing is we're not just trying to sort this one scenario, we're trying to train in the process of regulating your own emotions, and it takes time. So we're just modeling what that process is. The next one there is, say for example, a child is wanting to have a go on an iPad and another child is already using it, and they're starting to sort of butt in and try to grab it a little bit. We might start with where they're at, empathize with where they're at, validate those emotions, and then go on to this kind of thinking that you would like the child to have, the self-talk that you would like the child to have. So, oh my God, you really want a term. It's hard to wait when you're feeling impatient. That's okay. And let's remember that we get 5 minutes each. Okay, so we're starting where they're at, and then we're going on to where we'd like them to be. So we're training in the self-talk that we would like the child to have themselves. Okay, so this third one is a classic that people see both at school and at home. Children feeling overwhelmed when they don't know how to interact with a learning task. So that's hard, and being able to regulate those feelings of frustration and anxiety really make a difference to how well children engage with tricky tasks. So, it looks like you're not sure how to start this task. Can make us feel a bit anxious when we're not sure what to do. It's fine to feel anxious. We can have a look at the instructions and then take it step by step. Okay, so if you sort of contrast that to the sort of approach that people often use in that scenario, which is actually an emotion dismissing approach, people might come straight in with, I know you can do this. I've seen you do things like this before, which might be true, but what that's doing is that's it's actually because we don't want them to be behaving like that, and we're trying to go straight into the behavior. But that's difficult, because if the child is genuinely thinking, look, I am genuinely worried about this task, I don't think I know how to do it, irrespective of whether we as the adult think they should be able to do it, we're trying to just not sort this one particular occasion. We're trying to train in the process of regulating emotions. So we're going with, oh, you're feeling a bit anxious, and that's how we do sometimes feel when we're not sure what to do with tasks. That's normal to feel like that. So let's have a look at the instructions, okay? Let's read it step by step so we don't get overwhelmed. Okay, so we're starting where they're at, and then we're going on to the self-talk that we'd like the child to develop. Okay, super. So what is really helpful for us to remember is that we have in our brains these neurons, nerve cells called mirror neurons, and they fire in response to seeing somebody else engage in a behavior or expression of emotion. So what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to model the behavior and the process of going from dysregulated to regulated for the child, so that they can see in us, we can act it out for them, the self-talk and the way of interacting with emotions that we would like them to develop themselves over time. And we see, you know, from really young children, them start to use out loud the self-talk that they've heard adults say around them. So it's really powerful. The things that we say out loud are the things that the child will gradually start to internalize for themselves. And, you know, remembering that what we're doing here is we're building nerve connections in the brain. We're building new pathways. It's not a strategy just like we did it, I tried it and didn't work. We're training in these new pathways in our brain, just as when you learned to ride a bike or drive a car or change another kind of habit. It felt awkward and difficult at first, and then the more you did it, the neural connections in your brain got strengthened, and that impulse passed faster, and now it feels like second nature to you. So it's the same thing in this scenario, both for us, because emotion coaching might feel odd at first to us, and also for the child to get used to a new pattern of not becoming completely dysregulated or trying to avoid tricky emotions. We're getting them used to a new way of interacting with emotions. And the more we do it, the more it will eventually become second nature. Okay, so I'm going to stop the screen share there. Okay, so that's what emotion coaching is. It's an approach that's been used quite a lot more in schools over the last number of years, although obviously in reality people will have been talking like this forever. And what we do know is that children who have experienced this kind of approach, either because people knew that they were doing emotion coaching, or this is just naturally how we interact, that they do start to become better able to regulate their own emotions eventually. And that has implications for their interactions with other people. It has implications for their social relationships, and also how they approach their learning at school. So it's a helpful thing to do, and if you get used to it, it will eventually become something that is second nature to you, and you'll find yourself doing it a lot. Okay, thank you.